Thank you very much, Let welcome you to Medsoon African Motives as we are still on business studies grade 10 term 3 notes. We are still on business plan, notes on business plan. So without wasting much time, let us go to the components of business plan. So these are the components of business plan, where we're going to talk about cover page, contents page. We are going to talk about executive summary, description of the business, that is when we're talking about the overview, SWOT analysis, legal requirements, marketing plan, operational plan, financial plan, as well as competitor analysis. So let us get to the explanation of the components of the business plan. So right now we are going to talk about cover page. As it says, cover page contains the name of the business. So that is that. The cover page must clearly show the official name. Must clearly show what? The official name. The official name of the business. For example, let's say our business is a Bright Future Bakery. That should be clearly shown. Also, the cover page should show the contact details of the owners and the address. So this provides the owner's contact information so that people can communicate with the business, so that people can communicate with the business. Like when you talk of the phone number, you can talk of the phone number, the email address, that is that. Also, the contents and features, it should also contain the logo of the business. A logo is the business symbol or an image that helps customer recognize it. So, for example, a bakery can use a logo with a loaf of bread because it's a bakery and a chef's head. So that's that. So the customer will be able to recognize it. It's very important. Also, the type of the business. So it states what kind of business it is, what it does. So we know retail bakery, online clothing store. So we want to know the type of the business. Also, a copyright disclaimer to protect the contents of the plan. So a statement, there should be a statement that protects the business plan from being copied without permission. So that is that. Now, another component is contents page or index. As it says, it gives the title and page number of each subsection of the plan. So it simply says it lists all sections of the business plan and where to find them. For example, you can talk of marketing plan and then you say page 8. This is where you're going to get what? Marketing plan. It also allows the reader to find the information in the document. So it makes the document organized and easy to navigate. To navigate. So that is that. It makes the document organized and easy to navigate. So, for example, a bank manager quickly finds the financial plan using the content page. That is that. Also, another component is executive summary. Executive summary. Detailed summary of the entire business plan. So, executive summary gives brief overview of the most important information in the business plan. That is that. That is, for example, that is a one-page summary explaining the business idea, products, funding needs, expected profits. That is that when you're talking about the overview of the most important information in the business plan. Also, it says it is written after the business plan has been completed, but appears at the front to provide users with a brief overview before reading the details. That is that it is written after business plan but placed at the front. So it is written last because it summarizes the completed plan, but it appears first because the readers see it first. That is that. Then we come to another component which is called description of the business, the overview, description of the business. So it says describes the product or service and the unique features of a product of the product. So it explains what the business sells or why it is different from competitors. That is that. Then also discusses the long-term objectives, mission, vision of the business. So it explains what the business hopes to achieve in the future. For example, to become let's say Durban's leading bakery within 5 years. That is that. It indicates the form of the ownership. So it states the legal ownership of the business. So that is that. For example, a sole trader or a private company. That is that. Description of the product or service which the business offer. So it explains exactly what the customers can buy. For example, cake, bread, coffee, that is that. It includes the legal requirements of the business. So it identifies the laws and regulations the business must follow. For example, registering the business and obtaining trading license. So that is that. So now let us move on to another component, which is legal requirements. Legal requirements. As it says, legal requirements provides the legal requirements that the business need to comply with before it can start operating. So that is that. That is legal requirements. So it provides the legal requirements that the business needs to comply before it can operate. SWOT analysis, measure strengths and weakness of the business. Measure strengths and weakness of the business. So it means it looks at the business internal advantages and disadvantages. So, for example, strength, if we have experienced bakers, but weakness, maybe we have a small startup budget. So that's this that. Opportunities and threats in the external environment. So it identifies opportunities and threats. So it examines external factors that may help or harm the business. For example, opportunity, let's say growing demand for healthy food, but friend, new bakery opening nearby. So we're talking about a competitor now. Then, SWOT analysis is an indication that research was conducted to support establishment of the business. So it shows that research has been conducted. So a SWOT analysis proves the entrepreneur has studied the market before starting the business. So that is that. Now let us come to the marketing plan. Marketing plan is one of the component of the business plan. As it says, this is the most important component of the business plan. This is the most important component of the business plan. It explains how the business will attract and keep customers. So that is when they're going to do advertising through Facebook, local news, and stuff. It gives details of the 7 P's of the marketing. So gives details of 7 P's. So it explains the marketing strategy using 7 P's: product, price, place, promotions, people, process, as well as physical. So let's say our product, we are talking about cakes. Price is going to be affordable. Place, that is a local shop. Promotions, you can talk of social media that is going to use. People, maybe we can talk about the friendly stuff that the business has. Process, fast service, physically, evidence, clean bakery. So we are talking of that. Let us go to another component, which is operational plan. Operational plan. So operational plan includes where the business will be located. So where the business will be located. So it states the physical location of the business. That maybe shop at the Gateway Mall, that is that. Describes the daily operation of the business. So it explains how the business will operate every day. For example, baking starts at 5 a.m., shop opens at 8 a.m. That is that. It includes a description of product, how and where it will manufactured. So like it lists the machinery and the business that supply materials. So that is that. Now, we have this one where it says it also provides details of the equipment and supplies. That's when we're talking about those machinery as well as the business that supply material. Now we come to financial plan as one of the component now. As it says, it records details of how much capital is required and how it will be raised. So meaning to say it explains how much money is needed and where it will come from. For example, 3,000 from bank loan, 1 million from personal savings. That's what we are trying to say. It contains projected statements of profit, loss, and cash flow. So meaning to say it predicts the business future financial performance. Like we can talk of estimated first year profit, let's say it's 250,000. That is that. Then we have management plan as one of the component. It management plan outlines who will be in charge of running the business, as well as the skills of entrepreneur and other businesses. So it identifies who will manage the business. So it explains who is responsible for running the business. So that is that. Also, we have said it describes the skills of the entrepreneur. So it explains why the management team is qualified. Maybe the owner has 10 years of baking experience, let's say. Um, Also explains employee roles and hierarchy. As it says, it discusses the hierarchy and the roles of the employees. Meaning to say, it shows the organizational structure that you're going to have manager, supervisor, bakers, cashiers. That is what all these are under management plan. Then we have competitor analysis. Competitor analysis is the last component. As it says, these are the description of competitors in the market and their products. So it identifies business offering similar products. So that is that. Details of competitors' marketing strategy and its effect on proposed business. So here we're talking about whereby you're going to analyze how competitors attract customers. That is that. We want to know competitors. Let's say, for example, competitors offer loyalty cards, weekly specials. We want to know all those. So that is that. Now let us move on to executive summary. Executive summary. Purpose of the executive summary. This is where we are. As it says, it is included to satisfy those who do not have time to go through the entire plan and detail. So it helps people who do not have time to read the whole plan. So it provides quick overview of the business. That is that. Also, most lenders and investors read it first before the entire business plan. It gives readers an idea of what is contained in the business plan. So usually read first by lenders or investors. So it means that the banks and investors use it to decide whether the business is worth considering. That is that. Then we come to the other aspects, as we're going to talk about aspect that must be included in the executive summary. Aspect that must be included in the executive summary. So we are on the aspect that must be included in the executive summary. So the form of the business enterprise, form of business enterprise. So this states the legal ownership structure. Like, for example, sole trader, the main business activity explains what a business does. Like, for example, selling a handmade furniture, information about the owner of the business, information about the owner of the business. This gives basic details about the entrepreneur. For example, the owner has 5 years of experience in the financial design, let's say. The way in which capital will be obtained. How capital will be obtained explains how the business will get funding. For example, bank loan, owner savings. So that is that. Now let us move on to uh, the vision, mission statement, goals, and objectives. So now we start with the vision statement. As it says, the vision statement is a statement which describes how the business will achieve its purpose. That is the vision statement. So it means it explains the future direction of the business, like to become South Africa's leading eco-friendly clothing brand. That is that. The vision statement is the long-term goal of how entrepreneurs see their business in the future and how they want to grow. So it's a long-term goal for future. It shows where the business wants to, it shows where the entrepreneur wants the business to be in the future. Like to open 20 stores nationwide within 10 years. That is that. It addresses the profit, growth, and purpose and the stability. So meaning to say it focuses long-term success. For example, we want to increase profits while expanding into new provinces. That is that. Let us go to the mission statement. Let us be on the mission statement. As it says, the mission statement describes the purpose of the business and explains why the business exists. So it explains why the business exists. That is that, for example, we provide affordable, high quality school uniforms, let's say. That is why we exist. We exist as a business. The mission statement addresses how entrepreneurs hope to achieve their vision. So that is that. So it means it outlines what the business does every day to reach its vision. Like to say producing quality products, providing excellent customer service, that is that. It focuses on a business operation and also specific and measurable. So it focuses on the business operation. So it means it explains why daily activities of the business. So that is that. So with specific and measurable, that is, it includes clear targets that can be measured. For example, achieve 95% customer satisfaction rate. So that is that. So also the short-term objectives are more specific stepping stones to reach the short-term goals in order to achieve the long-term goals. So that is that. So the short-term, that is that small measurable targets that help achieve long-term goals, like to increase monthly sales by 10% within 6 months. So that is that. So now we have goals and objectives. The long-term objective is to provide direction for the company to achieve the vision. So here we're talking about the major goals the business wants to achieve over several years. It is also specific and measurable, just like the mission statement. So, like we are saying, it means goals guide employees. It is also specific and measurable. So it means objectives should be clear and easy to measure. So that is that. Thank you very much for your time.